is how they bag it. A lot of times it'll come in, say, 25-pound boxes or something. You may be used to handling 50-pound bags. This stuff may be coming in boxes. It may come in super sacks. So whenever you're dealing with these alternatives, you have to look at how are the products packaged. Because a lot of times they'll just dump it in a bin in a warehouse somewhere and just want to literally just dump it on the back of your truck type of thing. So there's all kind of different ways this product comes about. Then there's wheat mids. Probably a lot of you use wheat mids. Wheat mids is just a byproduct from making flour. And then corn screenings. I usually don't recommend corn screenings, but what they are is when a feed mill is making corn or they're milling corn, it's just basically the dust that hits the floor and all this, and then they just sweep it up and run it back through again. Only problem is, do you remember from the last meeting, there was a talk on mycotoxins. Well, that dust is where a lot of the mycotoxins reside. So I'd be a little careful on screening. Plus, that may not be an approved ingredient through Whole Foods anyway. If you look at the next slide, non-traditional sows and finishing. These are just non-traditional ingredients that we have used in sows and finishing pigs. The first one, of course, like we've already talked about, are flours, like the guy that's using the Krispy Kreme donut mix. The third one down is Gatorade. Here about a year ago, one of my customers actually had a chance to buy a truckload of leftover off-spec Gatorade. It may not have enough sugar in it. May have been, instead of lime green, it might have been yellow. I mean, just something was wrong with it that they could not sell it. So he bought a whole truckload of this, and we actually use it as a flavoring agent to the water with pigs like sows to make them eat a little more, that type of thing. The next one down is trail mix. You know, trail mix like you buy in a grocery store or in a convenience store. It's got raisins, cashews, little balls of yogurt. A lot of companies, when they make this product, there's a certain formula that they make it by. It has to have such a percentage of peanuts, a percentage of cashews, a percentage of raisins. But let's say that percentage of raisins is no more than 10%, and somebody messed up and they put 20% raisins in there. Instead of reworking it back through at that time, what they would do is they would just dump it all into 1-ton boxes and then put it out for bid and sell it. And we had a customer that would buy this trail mix, and he would just dump it in his feed and in his mixture and mix it and feed it whole. If you look at the next 3 slides, no, I'm sorry, it's not the next 3 slides. We'll get to them in a minute. The next slide is wet or liquid sources of ingredients. Pretty much you won't have to worry with wet products unless you feed your pigs through a wet-dry feeder. Now some people do, they'll feed leftover whey and different ingredients of that nature. But distillers solubles is an ingredient that's wet. That's why distiller grains are wet when they come out, because there's actually solubles. And what that is, the leftover yeast that is used to make the ethanol. Steep water. Steep water is used in other manufacturing. It's called a wet milling process. It can either be corn or wheat, and they can use some of this wet milling to make syrups. You know, high fructose corn syrup. You'll see it on every can of Coca-Cola, and you don't hardly see sugar in anything anymore. It's all high fructose corn syrup. Well, to get the corn soft, they have to steep it. They steep the corn, and what's left over is this water has a lot of protein, and there's some phosphorus and things like this that wash out of the grain into the water. And some people actually use the water as a feed ingredient. Yeast cream, that's just basically leftover yeast from various manufacturing practices. Citric acid, like what you'll see in Gatorade or lemonade, has citric acid in it. It's actually a fermented product. They'll take grain, put a certain type of yeast with it that instead of making ethanol, makes citric acid. And then the leftover yeast is actually sold as a feed ingredient. I've got a customer right now north of here that's actually feeding it through the water. And so all the way down, you see dump milk and glycerin, so there's a lot of ingredients there that can be used. It's just, can you handle whether or not they're wet or dry? Some of the non-traditional ingredients used in nursery pigs, there's various fish meal and fish meal type products like fish hydrolysate, which comes from salmon. Basically, when they take salmon and they slice off the fillets, what's left over is ground up into a meal. Where real fish meal is the entire fish. It's called menhaden fish. It's a type of herring that's actually ground up whole. The third one down is cereal byproduct. Now this is one that's becoming more and more popular. Depending on the cereal plant, whether it's a Kellogg's plant or a Post plant, depends on what type of cereal you get. Only problem is you can have some variation. One week you get a lot of Fruit Loops, the next week you may get Frosted Mini Wheats, you may get Corn Flakes, but they're very clean ingredients to use and they're relatively cheap. There's actually a cereal plant going into Asheboro, North Carolina here that starts up after the first of the year. It's actually a multi-meal plant. And if any of you are familiar with multi-meal, it's kind of like cream of wheat, but they also make some other cereals with barley and wheat. They have a cereal that's kind of like a Cheerios spin-off. Well, what happens is when these companies make these Cheerios, here again, they have to fit a certain spec because they're going to the human food chain. And it may be something as simple as they don't get enough sugar put in it, or they get too much sugar put in it, or they cook it too long and it's a little darker than what it should be, because they want each and every box of Cheerios or Corn Flakes to look exactly the same. So when you go to the grocery store and you buy Post Raisin brand, they have a certain amount of raisins that go in each bag. So they want everything to be consistent. So a lot of times you can take advantage of some of these human errors that come up in these factories. Chocolate byproduct, that's another very good product for pigs, especially young pigs like chocolate. And we feed a chocolate whey mix as part of one of our nursery feeds, where we actually get this chocolate byproduct, and it's actually got sugar in it because it's milk chocolate, and it's added with whey, and then it's fed to pigs. And you can actually smell the feed, and it has a slight chocolate smell. And then there's cheese byproducts like your Kraft macaroni and cheese. All that leftover powdered cheese goes somewhere. Well, it can go into pig feeds, or a lot of it goes into pet foods, but a lot of different products out there. The next one says Midwest Ingredients. This is just a brokerage company. But if you look down the list, there's 6 different products there. There's cereal fine, bakery meal, granola, oat products, various starches from potato, from corn, and fish food. And those were all the states that these ingredients were available in. So it's fairly widespread. Sometimes you just have to know where to look, kind of like the cereal plant that's going into Asheboro. Now the next 3 slides are the ones I want to show you. These are actually pictures of the trail mix that one of our customers has used in the past. The first slide just shows you the box that comes in. It comes in a 1-ton tote box, and what he does, he dumps it into a weigh buggy and puts it into his vertical mixer. So if he makes up 3 tons of feed at a time, we may only have 5% of this product, so we have 300 pounds of this product. The next slide is actually a close-up of it, showing there's almonds in it, there's pretzel pieces, there's raisins, there's M&Ms. And then the next slide is just a close-up for Brazil nuts. The big nut there in the middle, that's a Brazil nut. That's the only thing in trail mix that we found that the pigs do not like. Sows will pick around them. I don't know if they think they're rocks or what, but you put it in, say, lactation feed. And when you come through and you look in the trough the next morning, there'll be half a dozen Brazil nuts in the bottom of the trough. Now, gestating sows, they eat it fine because they're limit fed. But so it was just kind of an interesting thing. They seem to eat the M&Ms, obviously. They eat the M&Ms, they eat the pretzels, they eat the raisins, but they'll leave all the Brazil nuts. Now, if you go